Y'all, I just don't know if I'm cut out for fantasy. Hey, what's up? Hello. I hope you all are doing well. Today I'm here to talk about Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. And somehow we'll all get through this together. As usual, I'm not going to hold the book up the whole time, particularly because I'm probably going to need both hands for this. Both hands. So Bex and I have a friend, and she is very kind. And one of the things that she likes to do is book attack the two of us with books that she really enjoys and wants us to read. So last year, she book attacked me with Shadow and Bone and Bex with A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. So she just sent us these books in the mail unannounced and said, well, now I've sent it to you, you have to read it. So it took me a while, but finally I did. I was able to take a trip to visit a friend earlier this year, and I had lots of time on the airplane. So I said, you know what a great time, nothing else to do, I am going to try and read this book. Now, I am not fantasy's biggest fan. It really takes a lot to get me to pick up a fantasy book on my own, and once I do, to spend time reading it. It really needs to be based in a myth or a retelling of something else, or there has to be some other kind of hook. I'm never going to pick something like Game of Thrones up, or, any other high fantasy, or probably not a lot of YA fantasy up, apart from Harry Potter. I don't know what it is. I'm really specific about the fantasy books that I do read. If I like it, I like it. If I don't, I don't. There's not really like a rubric that I've been able to establish to figure out what makes a fantasy book that I'm going to enjoy. So I read this book probably in the course of 3 days. Shadow and Bone, for those of you that don't know, you'll have to ask someone else, and I will actually link Jenini's video from the Story Ain't Over where she talks about all 3 of these books and gives a really great description of what this book is about, because she can do such a better job than I can, given her enthusiasm for this series and all of the Grishaverse, actually. I'll link that below, so if you're not familiar with the plot of the book already, please just spend 3 minutes and watch that video. She'll give you a much better overview than I ever could. I think my first challenge with this book is that I just did not feel any type of connection with any of these characters. It very much struck me as like, alright, here's the same story, again in a different way, with characters that are the same. Like, it was very clear to me that Alina and Mal were gonna sort of break apart and then eventually come back together. I didn't know whether it was gonna be in this book or whether it was gonna happen in the next books, but I just knew it was gonna happen. It was bound to happen. It's set up that way. They act toward each other the way that you know it's going to happen. So that was very obvious to me. I wasn't wild about Alina's attitude, and I was so not wild about it that I don't even have any particularly rich commentary about her. Right. She just was sort of, yep, this is who I am, and I'm following the story, and I didn't feel like she was separate from the way that Leigh Bardugo had written her character out to be. Sometimes in my experience with writing, and I've heard other writers talk about this, you'll be writing and your character will just sort of do something that you didn't expect them to do. They sort of took on a mind of their own and a personality of their own, and they wrote themselves. It's a weird little, I think, psychological phenomenon that happens to people who are authors, and I don't feel like that might have happened with Alina in this book. I don't know. I also felt like the setting wasn't exceptionally robust. I've heard other people talk about the depth of the world building, and perhaps they can do so with more aplomb because they've read more of the books. But I sort of just felt that this was a world with a language that was a knockoff of Russian. And for some reason, like the 3 or 4 different groups of types of people, the fabricators, and then the Grisha, and whoever the other ones are, the blood people, the heart renders or something, like they all, I don't know why they sort of struck me as like bodily manifestations of the ideas that are contrived in the Divergent books with those different, are they called factions? Something like that. I don't know, that's what it reminded me of, and I was like, alright, cool, so we're not using a particularly intricate language to describe these things which are also very obvious. Maybe that's a reductive way to look at it, but I just wasn't super thrilled. I'm also someone who, when I read a fantasy book, feels like they don't have time to sit down and like learn a whole different set of names and things that are also similar, that they're going to be confusing to me. So I guess I'm really there's really no way for any fantasy author to win with me in that regard in what they're naming their characters. It's not good enough if it's too close to something real, and it's not good enough if it's too, it's too made up. So I don't know how to tell people to do well here, I guess. This is just not the pocket for me. I think the only person that I liked in this series that had, I think, any real depth to them that caught me was Genya. Actually, the woman who can change people's appearances and her own appearance, I thought that was pretty cool. And just, you can tell that there's a backstory there. And like, if there's anyone in this book series that I want to know more about, it's her. I want to know what her deal is, how she got to be there. Like, I would actually rather have preferred the books to be more about her. I think her trials are a little bit more interesting, but who knows? There's more to read. I understand that the television series expands on this first book and actually I think gets into some of the other stuff, and I have been told that Leigh Bardugo's writing really improves in the rest of the series as well, in whatever the duology is. I know it's sitting right behind me, but whatever the duology is that that pairs with this. So perhaps this book, which I think is copyrighted 2012, is just very like of its moment. Like that was the writing that got published back in that time, and that's where what I call new phase or new age YA was coming out. New age has its own specific terminology, so the new wave of YA was happening in 2012, and this is definitely right in that pocket. The writing really didn't hit it for me either. It was what it was. It told the story. Some parts of it felt very overwrought. I honestly can't come out of this reading experience with anything other to say about Shadow and Bone other than it's fine. It's fine. And that's that. As you can see, I do have several of the others behind me. So of course, when you read something that someone gives to you that they love, you tell them about it. So I was in constant communication with my friend, and she said, all right, well, now that you've read the first one, guess what? You're going to read the rest of them. So she was kind enough to gift me the rest of these, and I'm not sure when I'll get around to them, but now that I have them, I do feel like a personal friendship obligation to read them. So at some point, I will return, and perhaps my opinions will have changed. Perhaps the writing will improve. Perhaps the plot will improve. I read the first chapter of whatever the next one is, Siege and Storm, that was in the back of the book. It seems fine. It's fine. It's fine. I don't really know what else there is to say other than that. At some point here, once I think I read the first 3, I will probably do a book to series comparison and actually go and watch the TV series, and I'll see how I feel about that. I've been told that that really explains a lot of things and gives you insight from some of the other books, so we'll have to see. If you love this book series, give me, please, a non-spoiler reason in the comments to keep going with this, because I do need some motivation to get through these next 4 books that now I have. As always, thank you so much for watching. Anything that you might want to know about us is of course in the description. If you have opinions about my opinion, I'm sure you'll tell me. Yeah, you can leave a comment if you want. I hope you're having lovely weeks and lovely lives, and we will see you very soon.